A family's worst nightmare is finding out that their loved one has been murdered. Knowing that they'll never get to see them again or hanging on to the last words they ever spoke to them will stay with them forever. The grieving process is different for everyone, and the loss of a loved one is something that never leaves you. But what happens if you grieve for someone only to find out that they never passed away at all? Here are 5 people who were thought to have been murdered but were later found alive. Number 5. The case of Jose Maria Grimaldo Lopez has to be one of the strangest of all time. It includes details about a murder that never happened. 28-year-old Lopez worked on a farm owned by Francisco Antonio Ruiz. Lopez was known to have had learning difficulties and was of low intelligence, but instead of helping him, everyone around him mocked him and took advantage of that fact. On August 20th, 1910, Lopez sold some sheep and then went to La Celadilla, which is a lagoon where locals could bathe and even submerge themselves in mud to cure their ailments. After this, Lopez disappeared into thin air. No one knew where Lopez had gone, and after a few weeks, the locals of the village became suspicious and began spreading rumors that he'd been murdered. His family soon turned to Leon Sanchez and Gregorio Valero as their main suspects. At first, the courts threw out accusations against the 2 men until a new judge came into the small village and the criminal proceedings began. The civil guard, which is a mixture of the police and the army, began torturing Leon Gregorio to extract the truth about what happened to Lopez. Throughout their time in custody, Leon and Gregorio were mistreated, being beaten daily and held without food or water for long periods. Their spirits didn't break though, and they continued to protest their innocence for a crime they did not commit. In 1918, after just 30 minutes of deliberation, a jury found both men guilty of murder and sentenced them to serve 18 years in prison. Luckily, their defense was able to ensure that they didn't receive the death penalty. In an incredible turn of events, on February 8, 1926, the priest of the town where Lopez was born received a request for Lopez's birth certificate. The reason given was so that a priest in another part of Spain was able to identify him to proceed with the marriage. The priest thought this was either a sick joke or was a mistaken identity, as everyone knew that Lopez had died in 1910. When he didn't hear back from the priest, an angry Lopez turned up to the village and gave the locals the shock of their life. When he was identified to in fact be the deceased Jose Maria Grimaldo Lopez, the whole village was in shock and rushed to exonerate the 2 men, who'd been falsely imprisoned for his murder. They were given compensation and offered jobs as civil guards themselves. They both moved away to Madrid to escape the village that had caused them such pain. It seems that Lopez simply wanted to start a new life, away from the taunting and name-calling of his home village. Many think that on that night, he went to the lagoon with the intention of never coming back. Number 4. In July of 1984, Petra Pazitka was a promising computer science student at the University of Brunswick. At just 24 years old, Petra had her whole life ahead of her and had so much to look forward to. Her family last saw her when she was boarding a bus from her hometown of Wolfsburg, where she'd spent the weekend with her family. She planned on traveling back to her university so she could attend next week's classes. The last words her family would hear from Petra detailed how excited she was for summer vacation. During this time, Petra would be looking after the family home in Wolfsburg and looking after her siblings while her parents were on a much-needed vacation. She'd also planned on using this time to complete her dissertation. Petra arrived back at her student accommodation but began to act strangely. She withdrew money from her bank account and asked her neighbors to watch her plants and look after her pet bird while she was gone. Petra would then go about her day as normal, running errands and picking up a present for her brother's birthday. She was last seen by her dentist on July 26, 1984. She wasn't reported missing until 2 days later by her brother Karsten. Petra was last seen wearing a blue-gray jacket and beige trousers. She also had dark curly hair and wore thick-rimmed large glasses. A huge manhunt was launched to find the missing 24-year-old. However, a body was never found. A year later, in 1985, German authorities no longer classified her as a missing person and considered the case to be a homicide. They believed her disappearance was linked to a summer crime in Wolfsburg. The crime saw a 14-year-old girl being assaulted and murdered near a bus that Petra used to visit home. 19-year-old carpenter Gunter K. confessed to both crimes. Due to a lack of evidence, he was the only convicted of the crime against the 14-year-old though. Without any evidence or progress, Petra was declared dead to give her family some semblance of closure. Petra's family would get the shock of their lives in September of 2015 when a woman under the name of Petra Schneider was discovered, and it was found that she had no passport, no ID, no bank account, and wasn't registered with any HCP and shunned contact from the outside world. Petra was only discovered because of a break-in that was reported at her address. Petra was very distant with police officers before admitting that she'd been the missing student, Petra P. She revealed that she had been saving ever since she had moved to university. She'd managed to save around $4,000 to help her start a new life. Petra has never revealed why she ran away. She told authorities that it wasn't abuse or violence and that she was fleeing because she wanted no contact with her family. Petra's family was devastated that she didn't want to contact them, but they're open to reunion. They aren't angry and simply want to see their loved one again. Number 3. In April of 2005, 39-year-old Xin Zhongli was cleared of murdering his wife. He was sentenced to serve 15 years in 1998, of which he served 2, all the while being innocent for the crime that he was convicted for. Zhang Ziyu left her China home in 1994 when the body of a female was found in a pond just 3 months later. Her family incorrectly identified belongings to their missing daughter, Zhang. For this, Xin Zhongli was arrested and charged with murder following the discovery of the body. He claims he was forced to confess to the crime after being tortured by police during interviews. It wasn't until late March of 2005 that Zhang resurfaced again. Her identity was confirmed through DNA testing by local police, and finally, after 11 long years, Xin Zhongli was exonerated and cleared for a crime that he never committed. It turns out that Zhang had run away and started a new life in 1994, moving to an eastern area of China. She'd even gotten remarried and carried on with her life as if nothing had happened. Xin Zhongli was quoted as saying, "There is justice in the world." His lawyers were seeking a compensation package for the 11 years that he spent behind bars. When he spoke to the China Daily newspaper, he said, "My mother, who died from the stress of continuously appealing, cannot be bought. 11 years of freedom cannot be bought. Schooling of my daughter, which was stopped due to poverty, cannot be bought." Xin Zhongli harbors no resentment towards his ex-wife. He is, however, grateful that she resurfaced, and he's been given a second chance at life and the justice that he deserves. Number 2. Natasha Ryan was described as a troubled 14-year-old who lived in Rockhampton, Australia. Natasha seemed to be rebelling in her teenage years, experimenting with drugs, alcohol, and had even been suspended from school. It was also known that Natasha suffered from mental health issues, which culminated in her self-harming and attending counseling for her issues. Natasha seemed to be making steady progress with her mental health in the month before her disappearance, when she ran away from home with the help of her boyfriend, 21-year-old Scott Black. On this occasion, Natasha was found after only 2 days of running away. Scott Black only received a $1,000 fine for his involvement. On August 31st, 1998, Natasha disappeared again. Her mother had dropped her off at school that morning, only to not show up to any of her classes. She was soon reported as missing. There was no sign of Natasha after a few hours, and panic set in. The area of Rockhampton had already experienced the disappearance and murder of 2 young girls by suspected serial killer Leonard Fraser. When tips stopped coming in and leads went cold, Australian investigators concluded that Natasha must have been the victim of Fraser, and they were now looking for a body. Since her disappearance, there had been little sign of Natasha, with investigators classifying her case as a homicide. Scott Black was charged with willful obstruction of justice for the first incident in 1998, and for this he received a fine. When Natasha disappeared for a second time and she couldn't be located, her family assumed that she was dead, following the possibility that Natasha had become the victim of a serial killer. Authorities began searching vast expanses of bushland, with over 100 emergency service personnel aiding in the search. In total, the search cost about $400,000. Following the huge search for her missing daughter, the Ryan family accepted that she was gone. On what would have been Natasha's 17th birthday, May 9, 2001, her family held a memorial service to celebrate and remember the life of their bright, beautiful daughter. Little did they know that they were grieving for a daughter that wasn't dead. Natasha had since flourished into an adult and was living just 4 kilometers from the family that were so desperately searching for answers. An anonymous note was sent into police, believed to have been sent by a member of the Scott's family, according to an article written in April of 2020, with a note saying, "Natasha Ryan is alive and well. You can contact her on this phone number." Leonard Frazier was already in prison for the murder of the 9-year-old Kira Steinhardt when he confessed to murdering Natasha as well. Only now we know that this confession was false. During Frazier's trial at the Supreme Court in 2003, the police prosecutor showed the jury when he revealed that Frazier was innocent of the murder of Natasha Ryan and that she was still alive. When Natasha had been located, she was found hiding in a cupboard, leading to the Australian press knowing her as the girl in the cupboard. She told police that during her time away, she lived a very solitary life, with the curtains always drawn and no human contact. For her staged disappearance, Scott was sentenced to 3 years in prison, which was suspended after 12 months of perjury. Natasha was ordered to pay $1,000 toward investigation cost, while Scott was ordered to pay $16,300. Number 1. A footballer by the name of Yannick Kamba was involved in a car crash in his native Congo that proved to be fatal, or so everyone thought. For 4 years, his family and team mourned the loss of a young and talented player who was taken from them far too soon. During a trip to the Congo in January of 2016, Kamba claims that his friends left him and took his passport, money, and his phone. It wasn't until 2018 when Kamba went to the German embassy in the Congo and made it known that he wanted to go back. Luckily, he was able to secure the necessary papers, and he set off for Germany once more. When he arrived back in Germany, aged 33, he went back to his old job of being a chemical technician at an energy supply company, completely unaware that everyone presumed he had passed away. His ex-wife is now under investigation for fraud, as she claimed his life insurance policy after he was already declared dead. It's thought that she knew Kamba wasn't dead and forged numerous documents to collect a 6-figure amount in euros. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.